they look in the mirror, and who do they see in the mirror? Themselves. How do they know it's themselves? My cat looks in the mirror and thinks it's another cat and attacks the mirror because my cat's aggressive. Very, very, very affectionate to me, but I am his chosen human, and I am the only affectionate person he can be affectionate to, because I am his chosen human and he is my chosen cat, and we have this great relationship. But anybody else, he's just like, I'm going to win, you know. So where does self-consciousness come from? How did that go from here down to here? And how does all that immaterial stuff come in? In order for them to do that, they have to believe this by faith, which means we have a religion. A religion without a cause. And a religion that ends with no purpose. And yet, that is the model for our culture, right there. Which I think is really sad. Because you get down to kids raised in this, and they now are 21 and 22, and they have no identity, no purpose, and we have all kinds of serious identity crisis going on, as we have seen in our own community recently. Right? Which I think is really, really sad. So when we study God, and I talk about how big he is and how massive he is and all this, the fact that he actually cares for us is changes the whole dynamic of the whole story. So in relation to space, he is completely infinite. He keeps going in all directions at all times. And yet he is completely also one entity, I don't know how to use that word, that is not divided, not spread out, not diminished as it gets bigger. You know, like his power doesn't get less as it reaches out that direction forever. And as he is all this, he is not like omniscient over here and omnipotent over here. He's not divided into pieces. He is one solid whole in all places and all times. And isn't the Holy Spirit has to give us any kind of clue of what this means, because we can't comprehend this. In relation to size, if we actually wanted to try to do a measure, he's immense. That's the word they use for that. He is immense. It is bigger than anything and anything. Okay? He is also able to be tinier than anything, because he knows all the minuscule parts of the proteins, the molecules, the atoms, the protons, the neutrons. He's got all that. He's got that all separated and designed. He's got that there. I think it was Hegel, but I can't remember for sure because I didn't read him. I just read somebody quote from him, and who knows whatever it was. But said if you took the hugeness of God and you took the minuscule of God and you took the center, we have mankind. I thought, okay, but it was interesting, but whatever, you're right? I thought, whoa, because I can go from me to huge, bigger than I can go from me to that much to small. My brain doesn't go that kind of small and still even exist, you know? I mean, it's just like, it's mind-boggling how big it is. Okay, so he's if you talk about how big he is and where he is in this, they will call, meaning people who write books on this, will try to describe God's immensity related to size as, and I'll do this. Let's pretend this is our universe. And we are, well, I can't even put it up here. Okay? We are some tiny little spot right here, and that's way too big, by the way. And he is outside here, and he is inside here. And he goes that way forever in all directions, and he goes actually almost inward in all directions, infinitely too, if he goes to the smallest. Okay. They call this is often called omnipresent, is more picture, just to make it easier for our brains. This is just, it's just words to try to understand. Omnipresent with us, okay? Whereas outside he is infinitely immense outside of it. Is that, got any kind of clue of what I'm trying to say there? So we'll get into that a little bit more. Go open up to, where does it say this? I wanted to see where it says this. So it says this in 1 Kings 8:27. It says it in lots of places, but I cut it down to 3. Job, I think it's 5. Nope, Job 36:6. And in anybody find 1 Kings 8:27? Okay, read that for me, please, Marilyn.
But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain you. How much less this house which I have built?
Okay, this is Solomon when he's dedicating the temple, and he's created a house for God to live in, and it's almost like, I mean, if it was for me, I would almost be laughing. I would say, like, okay, yeah, right. I just created a house for you, God. Come move into this house like you'll fit, right? Because heaven cannot contain you. And so he's trying to describe in immensity. He's trying to describe that. What's Job say? Anybody have Job? Yeah.
Look, God is greater than we can understand. His years cannot be counted.
That's related to his time. Yes, we're going to get to eternity in a minute. I jumped ahead on that one. What about Psalm 147? Anybody got that? Hey, Kathy.
Great is our Lord and abundant in strength. His understanding is infinite.
Okay, so here, that's one thing I was going to tell you. When you're reading and you're finding verses about God's essence, his character, his attributes, you almost never find one by itself. Like you have his understanding is infinite. So we have two here. We have his omniscience and his infinite is combined. And you have we found that in Isaiah 40. You almost never find them isolated. You find power with sovereignty. You find, like that. And it just only goes to confirm how one God is in his attributes. He's still three in Trinity, which is another mind-boggling concept to try to communicate. And if you want a third one, how one of those becomes human and still all that maintains is like, okay, this is a difficult topic. But that's cool about our God. So, and I think Psalm 148, they have that one? 148:13. Oh, Kim has it.
Let them praise the name of the Lord, for his name alone is exalted. His splendor is above the earth and the heavens.
Okay, so these are words that God himself is using to try to explain immensity to us. And That's cool, because it's, as a matter of fact, they're all over the place. I have this huge long chart of it. I just can't give you all of it on each time. So, in relation to time, if you're going to do it to time, he's eternal. He's eternal. C.S. Lewis has a picture like this. He has this illustration. He goes, pretend you got this. He has a chalkboard. I have a whiteboard. He goes, pretend the chalkboard goes forever in all directions like that. And it's that big. I'm going to show you from Adam and Eve to Revelation 22. Okay? On that. There you go. That's probably too big. Yeah. And we are somewhere in there. And that's time compared to, and I thought, you know, that's an obvious, simple illustration, but it's a picture that hits you a little bit. How immense in all directions is God's time. You know, he's not even part of time. I mean, he's part of time. He's outside of time, inside of time. He's before time, he's after time, he's in the middle of time, and time means nothing to him. As a matter of fact, he is always just present. How do you say that? He's always just present. And that's God in time. That's how, there was a joke of this guy, you've probably heard this stupid joke, but some guy's walking along the earth and he runs into an angel and he goes, I have some questions about God. And he goes, okay, ask, I'll see what I can do. And the guy says, how much is $1 billion to God? And the angel goes, I'll go find out. So he goes up to heaven and he asks God how much $1 billion is, and comes back and he goes, God says it's like a penny. The guy goes, oh, how much is 1 billion years? I go, well, let me go find out. So he goes up to God and he finds out and comes back and he goes, it's like a second. And then the man goes, would you ask God to give me one of his pennies? And the angel goes, oh, okay. So he goes up to God, he gets the answer, he comes back, he goes, God said, just a second. Dumb, silly, but you know, whatever. So he is without sequence. Now this is something that we live, our lives are sequence. I mean, we are born, we are kids, we grow up, we live each day in sequence. We have to. I mean, I have a day planner, so I get everything done, so I get it done before I have to start tomorrow. If I start tomorrow without getting today done, I have twice as much tomorrow to do, da-da-da-da-da. And I live in sequence. We all do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have birthdays. We wouldn't have anniversaries. God doesn't live in sequence. And I can't hardly wrap my brain around that. He doesn't live as days. That's why he says 1,000 years is like a day. 1 billion years is like a second. He doesn't live in sequence. He lives at all present at all times. Such a strange thought. Yeah. Such difficult thought. He is, here's their official definition. He has somebody's, I can't remember which guy. He has simultaneous possession of all his total duration. Yeah. One continual present. And we saw that in 2 Peter. One day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. And 2 Peter ended with, until the day of eternity. Well, the phrase day of eternity isn't logical to sequential time. So it is a picture of simultaneously consecutive, not consecutive, simultaneous time. I don't know how to explain it. Okay? Revelation 1:4, Jesus says, this is Jesus speaking, he was and is to come. That is a human communication of what it means to be always present, which is really cool. They have to God has to communicate with us like that, or we can't get it. So here's the verse. O Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were created, and before you gave birth to the mountains, and before I'm messing it up, created the world and the earth, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Pretty cool. So he actually created time. He functions within time. He has a plan to make time consecutive. He uses consecutive time. He picked a time that was perfect for his son to appear, called the fullness of time. And yet he is within it because he's here with us, and outside of it at the same time.
Debbie, I have a question. I don't know where it is in Scripture, but it says something to the effect of he's with us to the end of time. And I think it's in Revelation. But nonetheless, if eternity is eternity, what's the end of time?
Is it a figure of speech? Is it literal? Is it, I don't know.
He is with us.
He is with us. I can tell you where it says he's with us at all times.
Yeah, but I don't mean at all times.
Right.
I'm
You
talking
mean
about the end of time.
the end of time. I don't know. I would have to find that spot and find out if that is one of God's figures of speech to try to explain to us what this is like, or if there's actually an end of time.
Because for us, there is
So
no
maybe
end.
it is, when he destroys the universe and creates the new heavens and the new earth, maybe there is no time. There's no sun.
There may not be that cycle.
There might not be a cycle of time.
Yeah, I see what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
we still have eternity going on because we will
Yeah,
live
yeah.
in the forever presence of God forever and ever. So, but there may not be what we call, you're right, the cycle of time, like as in a day and when he created time is when he said, and this was the first day of the evening and the morning, and that was the first day. That's the creation of time. And we often look at that as how cool that is the creation of light, but it's also the creation of time. So that's an interesting fact. Yeah, that's a really good question. I like that. There's all kinds of verses on how he's everlasting. You can probably find a zillion of them. There's Psalm 91 and 2, that's the one I just quoted. 93, 2. There's 102, 12, and 24, and 25 through 28. It was in Isaiah 40. It's in Isaiah 43, 13. You want to write them all down?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't write that.
All right. Okay. Here you go. This is everlasting to everlasting, okay? Or something similar to that, okay? Psalm 41, 13, 90, 1 through 2. And verse 4, I think I have down here. 93, 2. If I've got them wrong, you have to let me know. That I wrote down, I typed in the wrong numbers. 12, 24, 25 through 28. Isaiah 40, we were just there. 28. Oh, here's one you'll like. Micah 5:2, 1 Timothy 1:17 and 6:16. Micah 5:2. There, you can see. How that start? Oh, Bethlehem Ephrathah, as the littlest among all the clans, one will come forth from you that will lead my people. I'm very roughly quoting this. And he who is from eternity. Yeah.
Whose origins are from old and from ancient times.
Yes, his origins are from old and ancient times. That's a prophecy about Jesus Christ. Another place where we find out that he is actually God. Alrighty, so let's go to relation to everything. He is transcendent. And this often refers to not space, not time, not matter, but maybe even thought, concepts, morals, integrity, everything that you can consider, think of that's immaterial, that humans can do. He is beyond that. So we think of a person with integrity, he is beyond that. It's not necessarily even size or it's above, it's as far as he is above the physical, he is above the rational. He is just how do you describe the transcendency of God?
Say that last part again about the
As far as he is above the physical,
physical.
he is above the rational. So this is thought. This is his ability to think and conceive versus what we think and conceive. And I am. Yes, he is. His uncreated quality of life causes him to be transcendent above everybody. He contains everything. Oh, I had one illustration was like this. This is more of an illustration of both in and out. If you put a bucket in the ocean, the bucket would contain the ocean, but the ocean would contain the bucket. Okay? That helped me a lot. I go, oh, okay, so he is in and he is out. That helped. That was a picture that, sometimes these little pictures help me understand. Sometimes they don't. So here's a name for you. Yeah, I have to erase something. I'll erase our universe here. Webb. The something Webb is the name of that telescope. James Webb. James Webb is the name of that new, big, huge. I knew it was it. Okay. Oh, I do have one thing to read to you. Anybody heard of Augustine? St. Augustine? Okay, this is him trying to describe God. And it was translated from probably Latin into King James English, so excuse that. What then art thou, O my God? What, I ask, but the Lord God? For who is Lord but the Lord? Or who is God save our God? Most high, most excellent, most potent, most omnipotent, most piteous, most just, most hidden, most near, most beauteous, most strong, stable, yet contained of none, unchangeable, yet changing all things, never new, never old, making all things new, yet bringing old age upon the proud, and they know it not, always working, yet ever at rest, gathering, yet needing nothing, sustaining, pervading, and protecting. Yes, O my God, my life, my holy joy, what is this that I have said? And what saith any man when he speaks of thee? And woe to them that keep silence, seeing that even they who say the most are as the dumb. But thou, O Lord, who ever livest, and in whom nothing dies, since before the world was, and indeed before all that can be called before, thou existed, and art the God, the Lord of all creatures, and with thee fixedly abide all things, of all all causes of all unstable things, the unchanging sources of all things changeable, and the eternal reasonings of all things unreasoning and temporal. I mean, that is, Augustine lived in, I think, 325 AD. That's him trying to describe God. I thought that was beautiful. So yeah, that is one definition, one big definition. So I thought I'd show you this name, El Olam. See if I can get this right. Okay. Think Hebrew, E-L, this is a silent letter. There's a, this is an O, that's an L, here's the A, here's the M. So put it in English, L, O, long. Okay, goes that way. L is a shortened form of Elohim. It means the great mighty one. It's used for even the Canaanites used it on their false gods. They call Baal. Okay, was that was what I would just say is Baal, but that's what they would call that. But that is the word for all mighty. We're going to get Elohim, I think, in a couple weeks. But this is the God of eternity. And Olam comes from another word that means to lose your vision. And when they changed it to this, it turned into, whoops, the vanishing point. That's the etymology of the word. Turned into the vanishing point. That became eternity to eternity. So this word was first introduced with Abraham, and he is down in the area of Beersheba, which is southern Palestine, and there's you guys know the map. Here's the Dead Sea, there's the Jordan River, and here's the Mediterranean, and round around here is Beersheba. And it isn't named that yet, but that's where he's at. And right over here is the territory of the Philistines. Well, one of the Philistine kings is named Abimelech. Actually, Abimelech just means king, so they were all called Abimelech. So Abimelech comes out, and he sees that Abraham has a God that takes care of him, and he wants peace with Abraham because he's a bit afraid of that God. And Abraham says, sure, except for that your guys are digging up my well and taking my water out of my well that we dug. And Abimelech goes, gee, I didn't know it was happening. I got to deal with it. So he goes, because he is not going to get on the bad side of Abraham. So he goes that. And so they make a covenant, and Abraham brings out 7 lambs to sacrifice for this covenant between the two. And Abraham promises to treat him kindly and all that, and they promise the back. This is at the end of Genesis chapter 21. And they make the covenant. And then Abraham gets his well back and everything's all solved. Beersheba means 7, sacrifice of 7, I think, and or something close to that. And he plants a tamarisk tree on his land, and he says, and he calls upon El Olam. Now, honestly, I'm reading the story and I'm going, it's a really great story. I don't connect why God of Eternity is the title that goes with the story, but That's what's there. But the very next thing that happens, within a few mornings or a month of mornings or whatever, the very next thing recorded is God comes to Abraham early in the morning and says, I want you to sacrifice your son. And at the moment I'm going, he had already been told to go look at the stars and count your descendants. And he doesn't have the telescope. And he looks at the stars and he's supposed to count, if he can count the stars, you can't even count the stars on a dark night. You can't count those stars. If you can count those, you can count your descendants. Or if you can count the sand of the sea, you can, sand on the beach or whatever, you can count your descendants. And he's got this he's got 2 sons, but one's just been sent away with Hagar, and that's a different story. But he's got 1 son. He's old enough to carry wood up the hill, so he's not a little kid, but he's still not, whatever. I don't know how old he is. I would make a wild guess, but it doesn't matter. And he has to sacrifice this son. And I'm wondering if he's thinking of the tamarisk tree and this, because he says, I will do it. So there's something about knowing how big our God is. And in a little bit we're going to know how close he is to us. But I just love that Jesus says the same thing, only he calls himself the Alpha and the Omega. A-L-P-H-A. And this is the letter Omega. I have never seen it written out in the Greek text. I've only seen it as just the letter. That is what the capital Omega looks like. But Alpha, which is the first letter of the alphabet, is spelled out, but the last letter is not. I don't know if there's any meaning to that, but there is. That's how that is. He is that in several places. The Alpha and the Omega is in Revelation 1:8. It's also in 21:6 and 22:13. He's called the first and the last. He's called the beginning and the end. That's in Isaiah and in Revelation. They have all those titles. If you want all those verses, I can give you all those verses. First and last is protos and eschatos. You guys heard me teach about eschatos. That's eschatology. Okay, so first and last. Beginning and end is arche and telos. In the same word is used in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that's another title. So you see this, by this you can see he is trying to just use human language to describe this. That's Jesus Christ. So, I think you guys need a break. And I got more, and we'll do some more after the break. And I gotta get a drink. I just want to know if it's starting to blow your mind yet. Because it was blowing my mind as I'm trying to figure out how to comprehend it. The whole thing.
That's why we teach it to children, because they don't have to understand it, they just accept
They
it.
just accept it, yes. Good, yes. There's snacks over here. There is a sign
She's still up on everything. here too, but there were just other things. Emphasized again, yeah. I mean, it always was important, but no, it wasn't so short that we're doing and so, you know, for a year or
Only his name there was some years.
bring back someone and you know, but if you don't hear it, it's not going to come back. Say, YouTube videos, I'm sure it's something like that. Thank you so much. So how okay, because he said as much as I had right at 45, and that's why I'm like, that's going to be because I was thinking, you know, for 5 or 10 minutes, when he made this other, I was in a very busy So he and I talked this last week, and his recommendation was to keep things the way they are on the schedule. At that time, he'll be gone, and I'll go ahead and so I think I like that idea, because I like so like when he said that, especially since I'm the second one, it's not quite ready. Why change everything? But hey, on the other hand, Maybe she would go, oh, like, well, everybody knows her. You know, I don't know. But the communication is good. There's no logic in this. That's the funny part, is there's no logic in it. So anyway, Charles is gonna do a good job. Sometimes at the end of the year, at least at my other church, at the end of the year, they don't give a bunch of money. But, and it's not ridiculous. It's because there's
And they
Are you the one that asked till the end of time? That was in Matthew 20:28 or 28:20. And it's Jesus talking.
'Cause And I needed a staff down. I was sick, I took my and it was supposed to be like,
Now you should give me a pay. Yeah, that's a very liberal information. And then I heard another guy who's something she just had to let go. Yeah, and he and I were able to talk about that. Oh, okay.
And I did not know that God knew, I think he even sent me the mask so I would get it because since my husband died, my mother died, my father died, recently, and it was a lack of, I mean, it was just nice to have him. Lay on my bed. Never since then, he's
No, I like it. I like
And I opened the back door, it's like I opened it up and it's I had to break my hand out of the cottage plant up on the deck and come up into the house. I watered the garden and my building somewhere there was a squirrel that spread out like all black. I understood that.
Debbie, are you trying to start the class?
Yes, I actually am.
There used to be a bell over there. It might be in the,
So there's another characteristic of God that goes along this line, and it says omnipresent. Omni is the Latin word for all, and presence is present. So this means all present in literal thing, and omnipresence is usually, if we're trying to just wrap our brains around it compared to everything else, this would be inside the universe, okay? Whereas immensity and transcendence and everything would be both and outside. If we want to just talk about Is God near? Is God around? Is God omnipresent? We're talking about now, how does he relate to us? How does God take who he is and give himself to us? This would be omnipresent. So that's that.
Are you saying that if we weren't here, he wouldn't be omnipresent?
Oh, he'd still be here. He'd still be here. But it's a word that humans use to try to explain how God is here. That's it's not anything more than that. Okay? Because if we weren't here, he would still be God. And he would still be all of his characteristics, which means he would still be immense, he would still be infinite, he would still be in all places, and if there was no universe, he'd still be there. Yeah. So, but just to try to wrap our brains around it, most of the guys who are theologians who try to define these terms and try to give us any kind of concept of it, they'll use omnipresence more as an internal universe idea, and the other as an external. For us, the external is, we're not going there anyway, so we're staying in here until heaven, or, whenever. So he's not diffused, he's not spread out, he's in all places at all times, and we have all of him at all times. That's a thing. It's a little bit different than pantheism, which is another view on this, which says God is in everything, but he doesn't have transcendence. It's just impersonal. I'm not really very good on describing pantheism. I just know that it's in that category. He's close to everywhere, and he's near to everyone at the same time. And all of him is near to everyone at the same time. As a matter of fact, he is so near to you, he is nearer than your own soul, which is odd to think about because we are indwelt by him, but he is also near. It's just a characteristic of God. He is, yes, he is omnipresent. All three of the Trinity are omnipresent at all times. So that is another concept. He's not diffused, he's all there. The great verse on this is, open up to Psalm 139. And I'm going to have you skip down to verse 7. And let's go through that. I happen to love this chapter. It says, where can I go from your spirit? And where can I flee from your presence? And if you listen to how he does it, he'll go like this. And I see it as a compass. If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. Now, if you were sitting in Israel at the time you were writing this, you would go, if I take the wings of the dawn, or if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, because they would be thinking of the Mediterranean, even there, your hand will lead me, and your right hand will take hold of me. If I say, surely the darkness will overwhelm me, and the light around me will be night. Even the darkness is not dark to you, O Lord, for the night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light are alike to you. I thought, okay, so now he's got me on the compass wherever I go. He's got me at night. He's got me at day. He's got his hand on me. I can't get away from him. Do you guys ever felt like, okay, God feels so distant right now, and I can't grab on? And that has happened to me, and I've had times like that, and I just keep saying these words, and I say them over and over. I cannot get, so even if I don't feel it, I know it. Psalm 39, 139, 7 through 12. Beautiful, beautiful passage. There's several stories of people who tried to escape from God. or people who needed God's presence. Well, you know the real super classic story is Jonah has to get away from God. And he is going to get away from God. And he finds out that he's unsuccessful in that option, and he ends up, and if you read, most of the time you read the first chapter of Jonah, but the second chapter of Jonah is about what it is like to find God in the belly of this fish. And that God is there. God is in the belly of the fish. Okay, that is pretty cool. And of course, you know the story. He didn't want to go to Nineveh. He didn't want to tell the people because he just knew God says judgment's coming, and Jonah knows God well enough that God is a God of justice, but He is also a God of mercy. And he's thinking, you know, He's going to forgive him, and I don't like him, so I don't want to tell him because I don't want God to forgive him. I mean, that's pretty much the summary of Jonah. And he goes there, of course, you know, trying to get out of this. But it's another thing coming up. When God has a plan, the plan is going to happen. And it's easier on you, on us, to cooperate with the plan than to fight the plan. That's part of the problem, one of the lessons of Jonah. So, you know how he goes, and he goes and he runs away and he causes all this trouble for all these other people because of the storm and this and that, and they're all scared, and he gets thrown overboard, and he gets swallowed, and he gets spit out. What a fun trip that was, you know? In June of 2021, on the East Coast, up at Cape Cod, there was this is a true story, there was a lobster fisherman guy who was down, like, done this all his life, and he dives down and he gets lobsters. Anybody heard of this one? He gets lobsters, and he's just done this forever. He's got his boat, he's got everything, and all of a sudden, whoosh, he is swallowed. It hit the news, it was in the New York Times, it was in something else, and he thought it was a great white shark because they're out there. And he says he's feeling around, he feels no teeth. And he realizes that it wasn't a great white shark, and that pretty soon this thing starts shaking its head, and he's in there for about 30 or 40 seconds or whatever long, and I think Jonah was probably in there longer than that, but he gets spit out and tossed. He doesn't get tossed on land. He gets tossed in the water, and he survives it. They take him to the hospital. I actually have the newspaper. I mean, I don't have the newspaper article. I have it on my iPad, my newspaper article. So I thought, really did happen. Had some, and the guy goes, "You mean this could really happen? That the Bible might be true?" Yeah. I don't know that he learned any lesson about, you know, the omnipresence of God, or if he learned anything about anything. I don't know, but I thought that was interesting. They also had an article of the same thing happening in about the same area 150 years earlier. I mean, they had records of that. So evidently Jonah is not the only one. Although I think he's the only one who had a close encounter with God down in the belly of the fish for a while. And so, yeah. So there's another time when all right, I lost it here. Jacob is fleeing from his hometown because Esau, he's just stolen the birthright and the blessing and everything, and Esau's left with nothing, and Isaac's not real thrilled, and Rebecca is worried, and she sends Jacob away to go to the other side of over by the Euphrates to his uncle Laban's house. And while he's there, it's late, it's night, and he's at this middle of nowhere. There's no backpack, no sleeping bag, no nothing. He has to pull up a rock. He uses a rock as a pillow. I'm going, wow, that's desperate. But anyway, I mean, and he has this dream. And it's that you guys know the story, that the ladder and the angels going up and down the ladder. But his comment was, God was here and I didn't know it. And I wonder how many times God is here and we don't pay attention. God is here and we don't know it. And you know, you're going through a rough time and you don't feel like God is around. God is here and I did not know it. I just thought, how many times am I guilty of that? And how many times I go all day long and don't even pray? You know, God is here, right here. And if he was standing right here and I could see him, and he was right here next to me all day long, and I said not a word, how rude would that be? And yet, that's how close it is. So there's another time, and I really like this story. Elijah has just done his amazing Mount Carmel thing, and he has had the courage to go up against King Ahab and the prophets of Baal, and he's even poured water on the wood, and he's poured water on the rocks, and he's done everything to make it impossible for his sacrifice to catch fire. And the other guys have been dancing around, praying to Baal for hours and hours and hours, and the whole country is, well, the common people are just standing there. Which one's going to win? You know, but everybody in authority is against Elijah and for the other side, especially that little Miss Jezebel. And he does this amazing thing. He has such faith. He trusts God. God answers his prayer. Down comes the fire. And then he goes over to the edge of the mountain and he prays for the rain. And the 3.5 years of drought are gone. And he starts to go back, and he goes and he sees Ahab, and he goes, you better get home, you better get your chariot, and you better get home, or you're going to get caught in the mud, and you're not going to make it. And so Ahab goes flying home. Elijah goes running alongside, and he finds out that Jezebel, he gets the report, Jezebel has just found out that he has killed all of her prophets. And she is at the epitome of fury, and she has put a price on his head, and he has less than 24 hours. Anybody catches him, he's dead. Have you guys ever had a really amazing ministry, spiritual time where you're at this incredible, wonderful high, and the thing that happens next is this huge crash? And you go, I am so tired, but you also tend to almost get depressed. You get this huge down. It's just almost a physical thing that happens to you. Well, that happens to Elijah. He runs for 40 days. How does anybody run for 40 days? I have no idea. I can't even run for a half an hour, so I can't run for 40 days. But he runs all the way down, probably south into Mount Sinai area, or down into the Arabah, or someplace way down there, and he wants to die. And he needs God. And you know, the angel comes and feeds him, and then he goes for another 40 days, and he ends up inside the mountain, the cave of the mountain, and he just needs the presence of God. And of course the fire goes by, and he goes, go stand at the opening of the cave, and there's this fire, and not in the fire. And then the storm goes by, and he's not in the storm. You guys all know the story. And the earthquake goes, you know, this is all reflective of what happened on Mount Sinai when they got the 10 Commandments. It's the same kind of thing. And then he hears the soft voice. And it's the soft voice of God that he hears that is his comfort. And sometimes I just love that such a great hero in Israel's history had such a hard time after spiritual victory, because I know what that feels like. And it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not weird. I'm not losing my faith. I'm not anything. I'm just in this spot. And then, you know, God is always faithful. And he comes and he finds a way to show you his presence. And when you get that, you are refreshed. And it might just be, you know, your cat falling on you and loving on your neck. I don't know, whatever it is, but it lets you know that God is there. So that's a story that omnipresence. I think I have one more down here on my list. Where am I at? Oh, here's the classic one of someone who tried to get away from God. Adam. There is only 2 people plus God on the planet, except for Satan. And the 2 people have an appointment with God every evening. Adam, who should understand the character of God, tries to hide from God. Can you, I mean, that's your class. That even beats Jonah, I think. And
Well, that's like a child hiding from the parent.
yes, it is. They're going to go hide under the bed or something.
And
Yeah.
it shows how immature
Uh-huh.
or innocent.
Yeah, and guilty and overwhelmed with guilt and not able to face what's coming. And God calls out, "Where are you?" Well, it's not that God needed information. Just in case, because people have asked that. It's not that God needed information. It's that Adam needed information. Where are you, Adam? Adam needed to face up to where he was. Well, there's omnipresence of God. Those are just some examples of stories that talk about the omnipresence of God. There is another word for this. It's called, where am I at here? Eminence. I tell you what, I get these 2 words really mixed up. There's and then there's this other word. Okay, you see the 2 different words? This one means about to happen. This one means Jesus Christ's coming is imminent. It's about to happen. It's been like that since Revelation was finished. But that means something is about to happen, an imminent thing about to happen. This means very, very close. Very, very close. Whereas this might mean he's everywhere. This one, eminence, means he is very close. Right with you. It's another way theologians try to just define God's presence a little bit better. So I had to keep making sure I was looking up the right word because I would get them mixed up in my head. So eminence is that. There's several of these. I have a list for you, Kathy, of how close is God. You ready?
Okay.
All right. He never leaves us. Psalm 9:10. Matthew 28:20. You guys know that one. Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Uh-huh. What about Hebrews 13:5? You guys know that one. I will never leave you or forsake you. Okay, there's Psalm 21:6. How close is he? 23:4. You guys know that one. Even though we walk through the shadow of the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because of what? You are with me. All right. 31:20. 41:12. 42:5. 44:3. I was going to make us look up all of these. Because once you start opening it and reading one after another, another after another after another, and finally you go, you are overwhelmed with how much God wants to be and is close to you. And getting a list means nothing. Actually reading them and going over and over and over, it's like it's like a child at their birthday party when they have so many presents that they can't hardly even comprehend what's been given to them. So there's more. What did I leave off at? 44:3, 46:1. 73, 23 through 24. 75:1. You could just go through the Psalms and make a collection. That's what I did. 125:2. And then there's 16:8. I added some. Isaiah 57:15. 64, 1 through 3. This one's interesting because 64:6 is about how evil we are. And yeah. Where am I at here? Jeremiah 23 through 24. Amos. Someone told me about Amos last week. 9:2. Who was that? That was you, yes. Was that the right one? Is it Amos 9:2? Which one is yours?
4:13, I think.
4:13. I'm not sure if that's omnipresence, but it's something about God.
It's in this book.
You like that? What about John 14:23 and Acts?
Just read the whole Bible.
You could just read the whole Bible. Yes. 2 Corinthians 6:16. Ephesians 3:17. 1 John 2:24. Revelation 21:3. Okay, those are only a few. I'm telling you, those are only a few. It's all over the place. Our God is with us. But actually, honestly, I needed the list. I needed to look at the volume of it. I needed to see, really? Because in your hard days, you forget. So we need another name. All right, let's see if I can do this. And I'm missing half the vowels. So this is, you guys might recognize that one. That's J or Y H W H. That's where we get Yahweh. Okay, this is an SH, and there's an A below it, and this is an M, and this is an M, and there's probably another A here. A, and this is H. And so this would say Yahweh Shema. And that means this is the demonstrative pronoun there. The Lord is there.
The Lord is what?
There. Where is the Lord? He's there. It's described in Ezekiel at the very, very end. You guys know the story of Ezekiel? Ezekiel is removed from Jerusalem with the Babylonian occupation and taken to Babylon. and he gets these visions, and he has seen lots of things happen. He has seen the glory of the Lord leave the temple. That's got to be one of the most devastating moments in Israel's history, when the glory leaves. This is a side note because I'm rabbit trail off here. The glory of the Lord does not come back until John 1:12. No, John 1:14. And it says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. When Ezra and Nehemiah and all those guys rebuild the temple, after they come back into the land, the glory never enters it. The glory came back in the person of Jesus Christ. But in the meantime, Ezekiel, while he's in Babylon, gets these visions. He gets the vision of the temple that's going to be built, if I'm going to just make a guess as to the timing of it, in the millennium, when Jesus Christ returns. And he gets to watch the glory come in, and which is probably Jesus Christ himself, right? And it said, and the statement is, the Lord is there. That's how it ends. And that's how Ezekiel ends. The Lord is there. So that's just a cool, that's the Lord is there. Wherever you are, the Lord is there. That is that. So there's a whole lot of things that this does for us. If I know that the Lord is there, and I'm really aware, I might be deterred from sin. I might be deterred from gossip if I could just remember that he's standing right there. You know, there's a little bit of fear in this. There's a little bit of respect in this. There should be. There's a little bit of awe. But then there's also the whole side where when I need comfort, the Lord is there. So I get both sides of this. I get some protection for my own self, and I get comfort. And knowing that the Lord is there is a huge piece of understanding God. So that is my lesson. I'd like you to read Psalm 73. Psalm 73 is a sad psalm. It's a psalm about a guy who is watching life around him, and he becomes bitter and jealous and envious, and he's having trouble dealing with what appears to him as the lack of justice from God. And he needs to know, and I'm thinking, how many times have we lived through something like that? Something that's made us jealous, something that's made us envious, something that's made us bitter, something that's been hard, something that seems unfair. How do we, and I want you to see how he deals with it and what his conclusions are. So that's Psalm 73. I found it comforting to my soul to know that God had a psalm that walked me through such a situation and what to do about it. So let's pray. Dear God, what can we say other than thank you for being here? Thank you for being past the vanishing point on both ends, but thank you for also being here, like right here. Thank you for being close to us as we walk through our day, when we acknowledge you and when we don't. Thank you for your word. Thank you for condescending to communicate to us in what is to you simple little terms that try to describe who you are to puny little minds like ours. And thank you for loving us so much that you wrap us like your little sheep in your arms and hold us close to your bosom. And help us to consider you, think about you, and remember you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Since Martha's not here, I'm going to just be bossy and take over here. Thank you, Debbie, so much. Let's give Debbie a big hand. Thank you for the time that you put in, and what a challenge it is to our hearts to really think of God right there next to us. I could just see him standing next to you and thinking, oh, he's sitting next to me. A couple things coming up this week that are noteworthy. We had a handout last week to sign up, only so that we kind of had an idea how many people were coming, but we have the women's conference that was supposed to be over on the coast this weekend, but it's not going to be. It's going to be here at our church. And so we're going to be meeting on Friday night for a couple hours, and then Saturday morning until about 12:30. And so on Friday night, we're going to be having like a charcuterie board. So there's going to be some snacks. So if you don't get a chance, if you're working and you're coming in late, you'll be able to have a pretty nice little snack there. And then everyone's invited to bring some kind of goodie for the morning snack on the next day. So Marcy, can you help me remember what time were we Friday night?
She's gonna open the doors at 5:30, but we're gonna start at 6.
So 6 o'clock we will be starting for that, so you might want to keep some of that in prayer. Debbie King is going to be bringing us the Bible lesson. Nancy Voigt is going to be also our speaker, so these are things that they had prepared for when we were going to be over on the coast. And so we're just so excited to not miss that good teaching. And then Rachel from the Call, that's the pastor's wife over there, her and her daughters are going to come and lead us in worship. So we're going to have some really special music. Hopefully some folks from throughout our county, and I think they opened it up to all the other people that may have been traveling over to the coast. So we really don't know what to expect. We're hoping for about 60 to 70, but we have no idea. It could be 8 of us. And it's going to be worth the time. So please put that on your calendar for this weekend.
Where do we sign up?
You don't really have to sign up. We're just kind of wanting to know. But if you, there is something out on the counter, on the welcome counter. But we don't care if you've signed up or not. Just come. So that'd be more important.
What time do you arrive on Saturday?
Saturday morning, 9 to 12.
We're gonna open it at 8:30.
8:30 to be here. Thank you. That's what I forgot all about. Saturday.